Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Pranav Tiwari. He's the CEO and founder of ENP Technologies. And they have a product called UNIQ that's coming to market. And he's going to tell us about how that works. Pranav, tell us about the core business.
So I'm Pranav and extremely happy to be here. I'm CEO and founder for ENP Technologies. We are a startup based out of Houston, and we are very much having our solid foundation on energy business, mainly oil and gas, manufacturing, utilities, chemicals. And very recently, we have launched a product called UNIQ. It's a universal industrial equipment numbering, which is very similar to what you might have seen or heard about UPC barcodes sort of thing. But in this, it's very specific to the industrial equipments. So if you look at today, the landscape of industrial equipments, it's very much a lot of different flavors and variations, a little less standardization. And what we are trying to bring about is a little more standardization in the way we see this metadata of industrial equipments and the way we consume that data. So it's an industrial equipment data warehouse which hosts all the different type of industrial equipments that is being used. It includes mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, piping, cables, safety critical equipments, all of these which comprises of a typical industrial equipments in any refinery or chemical plant, or maybe any of these LNG terminals which are coming up over in this area. All of these form the basic asset of a running manufacturing company. So that's a hosting of all this industrial equipment into that one single environment, which becomes like an ecosystem for industrial equipment manufacturers and the consumers of these, the people or the users and the companies which consume this data. So it's an ecosystem for both these entities to come together. What we did was about, in this UNIQ, is about setting it up using blockchain and being a single source of truth for these type of industrial equipment, so that, one of the major common pain points in the industry is when we talk about industrial equipments, we are never sure that is this the exact equipment that we are talking about. So UNIQ becomes like a single source of truth for industrial equipments. And one of the great examples which you can compare with other industries is about like retail. We buy a lot of products from retail stores, and it's mandatory that any product which is being sold and purchased in industrial space, in the retail space, has to have a barcode. And when you scan that barcode, even if you use your mobile phones and scan that barcode, you'll get to see a lot of metadata, like country of origin of manufacturing, part number, serial number, or something more related to what's the weight, dimension. That's what we call it as metadata of a typical product. So this metadata is readily available in the retail space and anybody can extract it, use it. But when it comes to industrial equipment, it's not mandatory that the manufacturers have to provide a barcode or something like that. So the metadata of industrial equipments, it's not available. Or if it is available, it's there on the website of companies. It can be in the form of a data sheet. When people buy, they get it, or in the part of safety sheets. But after a few years, it's not there. It moves away. Someone has to go and scrape that information. So majority of these industrial equipments which is being purchased, the metadata is either not readily available, or if it is available, then it's partly available. And people classify it as like unavailable or unknown. What we are trying here is through UNIQ to bring all this industrial equipment metadata into one single blockchain so that it's accessible to the industry worldwide. It becomes easy to find, easy to share, easy to put knowledge related to those equipments. You can find them, you can talk about it, you can share with somebody, you can learn from how others used it. And on top of it, you can ask questions with others. It helps not only from a point of view to learn more, but also from a point of view that if there is a problem which somebody has faced related to that industrial equipment in some part of the world, somebody else can also get a benefit in the most remote part of it. So it's a knowledge sharing, also collaboration, and on top of it, it gives ease for the industry to find more relevant and like a validated metadata. So what we are primarily solving here is a problem which is about standardization, so that people in the industry don't have to spend a lot of time to figure out what this equipment is. We bring that metadata with quite good amount of ease so that it's easily extractable. And then you have another flexibility of taking that data into any other systems. It could be your ERP, it could be document management system, it could be digital twin. All of these are the consumers of this type of metadata, and everybody requires it. This is a pressing need in the industry because currently this type of metadata, because it's not classified, a lot of things are not being able to done. It's a big gap. And globally, there is a lot of these type of different equipments where industry is struggling to find metadata. I mean, what happens is eventually somebody has to be hired to go and scrape it out. But practically, it's a big industry and everybody has the same problem to find that metadata.
And the person problem is usually the customer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly the one who is buying these type of equipments, who are consuming them, who are installing, who are responsible for maintaining it, or somebody who is involved in supply chain, moving that equipment from one location to another, or maybe warehousing, storing that as a spare, or finding a way to fulfill the needs in a short span of time, or such type of requirements where you have a warehouse management system or 3PL and you have to move these equipments very frequently.
I just want to ask, on a personal level, where was the spark for this idea? Where did this need appear for you to attack it with this startup?
Yes, it's more like this. I have been working in this capital projects for a long time. So I had been through this problem multiple times. And I used to write my own white paper on it. You can call it my frustration on it. And gradually what happened, I was working on this problem, but at the same time, in last year, we got an open call from Shell Game Changer. So Shell put up a request in public domains and then saying anybody who has a great solution on this can pitch in, and that will be evaluated by the Shell Game Changer team. It's more like an innovation tournament sort of thing, where they evaluate this type of public solutions. And in that process, after evaluating, they selected us, saying our solution was most likely doable and promising. That's how we got involved in doing it. They gave us a grant to do a proof of concept with them. In that process, we developed the product. We did a proof of concept, connecting with ERPs, connecting it with other systems, bringing in the data, extracting it, demonstrating how will it look like, how does that data move out of the system. All of this was done. Then we launched the product in the process of doing it. So the spark was the frustration and difficulty when we were actually doing these capital projects, and we saw this problem happening again and again. Like
could you explain a little bit when you say capital projects? What?
So in capital projects, what happens? There is multiples, thousands of equipments being purchased, and that is getting commissioned in a particular refinery or chemical plants. And that capital project takes a lot of time. On an average, generally it takes 3 to 5 years sort of thing. So by the time the project is getting over and you have thousands of equipments, and all those equipments metadata has to be updated into the systems like ERP or other things, it becomes too difficult because a lot of information is not there. And what you have is vendor data books or information which somebody has to go and scrape it out. And by the time it's installed and commissioned, it becomes more difficult because the experts in that field, they have moved on to some other projects.
Like the person who bought it or said, this is why I picked this equipment.
Yes, or who was involved in testing. There are a lot of testing happens. At least 2 testing surely happens, A and B sort of thing, ITR they call it. But primarily these inspections happen, things get commissioned, and then you have a lot of information which is getting handed over. And all the target environments which is there being used for the operation landscape, which we call it like operations readiness sort of thing, those applications need that data. And that metadata many of times is like incomplete, or somebody did not have that visibility, or it was many a times it also happens like people provide the data, but it's not up to mark. So it's a manual entry and it's never getting fully populated.
It doesn't actually make it to metadata itself.
Yeah. Right? And it's like this. If suppose I have a equipment which I purchased from a company A, but its original manufacturer is B. So somebody in the mid is not providing all the data because there is some changes that might have happened or that was not available in the very beginning. So these type of complications happen, and at the end of it, there's a lot of dump which happens, a lot of dumping of information. Somebody has to start doing a lot of rework. And it happens repeatedly. It's not that people really want to do it, but the way it happens is because these are long-term projects, you have a lot of things happening in due course of time. It takes a lot of toll on keeping consistency in the way information is getting captured. So at the very end, a lot of information is dumped, which becomes very difficult to figure out how to fix it. And one of the primary part of it is metadata. Metadata is where what we call it like, who is the manufacturer of that industrial equipment? And when I say industrial equipment, I mean to say like pumps, motor, exchanger, cooler, compressors. All these becomes industrial equipment. We have pressure indicators, we have cable trays, pipes. All of these are some or other ways of which industrial equipment is comprised of. And we require the very basics of it. The industry is asking, hey, who is the manufacturer? What are the properties? If this was tested, what it is? Is there anything like UNSPC code? Can we get some environmental rating codes? These type of information is very crucial, essentially required. And majority of these applications where these type of industrial equipments are being either monitored or being maintained, they have incomplete information. Like in digital twin, if you look at the attributes or the properties of it, a lot of things are hidden. It's kept as, okay, what is there populated, it becomes visible. That is where the gap is. And people in the industry, by default, when you look at the way things are happening, by the way of working is, there's an assumption because I'm putting an order of this equipment from my ERP, I have people assume that probably I will have all the information related to that equipment into the ERP, which is not the truth. Somebody has to go and populate it. There are fields which has to be populated, but if it's not populated, it will show as blank or unknown or unavailable. Majority of the time, that's where the gap is. That systems have not been populated and people don't have that information. And everybody needs it. So every company has to go and scrape it out and populate, which does not make sense because there has to be one single source of truth from where this can be extracted. Everybody can consume it again and again. But there's not like something which happens at one industry or one point of time. You make a refinery, suppose today, a greenfield project, but very next year you may come up with another turnaround, or there might be some upgrade that has to happen. So probably there will be another 10,000 new equipments being added, another 100,000 smaller components. So in altogether, every company needs it almost like every year on year whenever there is any change happening, because there is a good amount of equipments getting decommissioned, a lot of them getting reinstalled or new installation happening. Yep. So like among the major components, I would say almost like 10 to 20,000 new components do come every turnaround with that sort of change.
So does the unique product allow you to see kind of the top level product, but also see the subcomponents where like it's a certain NEMA-D motor for the pump, for example?
So suppose like motor, as you mentioned, there would be a starter also. So we do classify that as a related spare or critical spare if it is classified as a spare. So accordingly, it will highlight and show what are those related components or spares for that primary equipment. So there is a relationship between these type of equipments. And we all are used to that particular thing, that if I'm looking for a motor, I would also like to know what are the other components and how can I find them easily. It has that. We have that feature inbuilt in that.
When you talk about the original way of doing things, you mentioned scraping and manually inputting. So is there software that's developed? Are you working with developers to automate this, or is that what your solution is? Because when you say manual, I'm envisioning, so there's someone who's actually updating this, looking at a serial number and inputting it, or does it get captured? What's the sort of original way of capturing it that's not working?
So we have come up with almost like 4 different ways of doing it. One is manual, one is like bulk upload, so that a lot of that can be uploaded in one go. Then there is another one where we see that a lot of companies have put their information in like a data sheets, like PDF. So we have used AI/ML extensively in that space to scrape that information from PDF and populate it into the blockchain. And the fourth one is about taking it directly from the websites. if you insert the URL, it will be able to extract that information and transform it in a way that it is compatible to go into the blockchain environment. And it becomes more seamless or standardized way to looking at because many manufacturers, they are manufacturing same products, but they would like to differentiate the product from their competitors. So they have kept it a little different, or there is no specific standard or mandate that they have to have a specific attribute. So there is always a variation. These are the reasons for which variations happen. But from a user's point of view, or somebody who is trying to find more information or finding more information related buying such equipment, we have made it simpler so that it's easy to, suppose he wants to know motors related to 30 amperes, he can select that in the filtering mechanism. It will show up the rest of it. So these are the way we have found a mechanism to scrape it, automate the scraping process, simplify it so that it goes to the smart contract in blockchain and gets inside it. And that's the reason we chose blockchain as a mechanism here also.
Can you talk a little bit about that why you chose blockchain?
So in blockchain, it's more like decentralized and a transparent environment. In this space, it's a very growing landscape. So it means there are a lot of players who are keenly looking at this metadata, and many of the manufacturers are manufacturing like millions of equipments. If they have to add it, they would prefer to maybe have a dedicated node in their own environment so that they have a copy of the ledger of what they are adding and what others are adding. That's why we chose blockchain, because it's extremely scalable. Industry can use it in multiple ways, and it is not something which is centralized, where there is a dependency. So
so a lot of the challenge you're really overcoming is that the manufacturer they do have their own database. They already have their own information, but it's sometimes gated from a user because the manufacturer may change over what's in their database as they release new products, or they may have, manufacturer A may have a different term from manufacturer B because they want to differentiate themselves from a marketing perspective. So you're creating, like you said, the single source of truth.
Yes.
The only way to do that is really with blockchain if you want to have people reconcile differences, right? Because if you brought a traditional database to bear, someone still has to audit it and maintain it, and the blockchain lets you kind of automate that process, right?
So in blockchain, yes, that's where the validation happens. But on top of it, there is another basic layer to it that blockchain makes it simpler. It means it's a shared ledger. I also have a copy of the ledger. You can have a copy of the ledger, and all of us can have a copy of the same ledger. It's not a solution which is like, I'm saying it's my solution. It's more like a solution by industry for industry. It means if I add 1 million equipment today, and by default, you add another 2 million. So immediately the ledger will show 3 million equipments, and all three of us will have a copy of the same ledger with 3 million equipments. So tomorrow, if you add another million, it will show 4 million, and we all will have a same copy of ledger. It means it's not hidden. It's completely transparent. Industry gets to see the same metadata, irrespective of whoever is adding it. And it's pretty much real time because everyone has the same copy of ledger, which is getting updated by adding those equipments. So it's scalable. People in the industry who are manufacturing huge set of equipments, they would like to have a complete copy of the ledger. So by joining this blockchain as a node, they get to have a complete copy. It's just completely transparent. It's not, I'm not saying that it's not encrypted. It's encrypted. But on base thing is it's transparent. If you know a unique ID of that, you would be able to extract the metadata of it. It's something which is scalable, easy for the industry to expand. And it's not something which anybody can come in and modify or play around with it. It's something which is highly reliable, and it's not because any and every data is going into blockchain. It means once in the block, it means it's no more. It cannot be tampered. Yep. It's visible to all, transparent. And that's what industry requires, a sort of transparency. I and we both should be on the same page that, yes, this is the equipment and people can rely on it. And there is a lot of collective knowledge in the industry. So blockchain also gives an advantage that anybody who knows about equipment, who has been working, who has more visibility on these equipments, they can go and validate that data.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have validated the data, it means you feel that this data is correct. And more the validated the data is, the more accurate the data is. That helps industry to rely and absorb and consume the data with more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like taking the collective knowledge of industry to get a more validated data.
Yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit, but does any of this, do you have any sort of hurdles in getting buy-in from, companies who are sort of worried about, proprietary information getting out there, or does this somehow circumvent that or not? Is that not a problem?
So when we look at it, we look all these equipments from a point of view like, let me classify it.
Mm-hmm.
So we classify them as 3 types of equipments. One, which is very readily available in the industry, off-the-shelf products.
Mm-hmm.
Second is the one products which are manufactured by someone, but modified by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is one which we call it highly customized products. And metadata of each of these vary. If it is highly customized, there is less amount of metadata available. But it is still available. A good amount of is available, which is all this available in the public domain. Proprietary data does come in. It's related to mostly the second and third category, which is either customized or highly engineered products. But industry-wide, it's more like people know, everybody knows that these are industrial equipments which is getting consumed, and this information is already in public domain. So in terms of the resistance is more, okay, if these products are getting put up in a public domain, they may get scrutinized.
Mm-hmm.
So you and your competitor product is now hosted in one platform where people can come in and talk about it. So it helps in multiple ways. People get to see how it has helped them, how it is helping others in the industry, where it is getting consumed. It helps in multiple ways that now there is a good amount of information which gives visibility to those equipments in a platform which is accessible by all.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps in a way that people get more informed, detailed information, which is comparative between the product that you're looking at or other products. And manufacturers get to see what are the people talking about it.
Mm.
What is it that people search for it? What are the words they look for? What is it that their interest is? So it's a platform where we see that there is visibility, a very high visibility for people in the industry, subject matter experts to talk about. And there is an inherent resistance about, okay, now my product may get scrutinized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we look at it, we look at 2 points of view. Like, okay, there are products which are very matured. There are some products which are new in the
Mm-hmm.
getting just launched. So it's a mix of both. Industry-wise, it's like people who have been in this space for a long time, they have a very high inclination, because now the mechanism that they spend or the time they spend to get a new customers, here they get it. They would get it by getting listed,
Mm-hmm.
which takes away a lot of pain point actually to acquire a new customer, to get visibility, to find where is the potential area where this type of equipment has a case to get used or consumed or bought.
Yeah.
So buyers get insights. People who are writing about, the engineers who use these equipments, who maintain it, they get to share a lot of information and talk about it. So, and where is it getting used? Which company is it getting used? That becomes a little more visible. It becomes easier for people to share, talk about, and help others in the same area who are struggling to find more information. So it's a collective ease of finding, but at the same time sharing.
Mm.
And industry-wide, the amount of effort they have been putting, I think it takes away a lot of pain, because at the end of the day, every manufacturer needs to share the same information with every customer of theirs. Here it becomes like you have put it in one location, and it gets shared with all of them.
Mhm.
Every time they ask for the same information, they don't need to do it. Just say, this is the ID. You can just find it from here. It's easy to download, share, and reference it again. You don't need to maintain multiple locations. It's just one central decentralized location in blockchain where it's hosted. You maintain it, and it's easy way to consume it again. And the beauty of it is, once it's in blockchain, it's always going to be in blockchain.
Yeah.
So it's not something that it'll go away after a couple of years. It'll be there as long as that environment is available. So in blockchain, even after 3 years, 5 years, when the warranty is over, industry-wise, people who are consuming or buying this equipment, they don't have a struggle to go and find that information. They just need to search it. There will be a unique. It's more like this. If we buy cars.
Mhm.
Every car comes with a VIN number.
Mhm.
And we have a complete digital footprint of what happened with the car. When was it maintained? What happened? So here it's same thing. We are assigning a unique ID to the equipment, and there is a complete information available. On top of it, people can take a bigger digital footprint of that industrial equipment. If $30,000 cars have so much of footprint, here the equipments are way more complex, more expensive. It needs a more detailed information, what happened. If people want, blockchain also has that transparency that if you purchase it so and so a year and you have maintained it, or you want to repurpose or resell it, you can do that. It gives you that flexibility also on top of it.
Yeah. No, I'm running into this challenge. So, I got a 30-year-old car, and you can kind of see on the old web, our equivalent of blockchain is a web forum, right? Like that's where everyone is old school doing this.
Yes.
And you can see like the big challenge is as parts go out of production or out of inventory, there's always a question of who makes a replacement part? Does it fit? Is that company even in business? And as these suppliers kind of move around, there's, am I looking at forum posts from 15 years ago? Am I looking at forum posts from the last 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
There's this lack of, there's this big question of what's still real with these old, like low production vehicles, and what also is going to work as new parts kind of come into the market that may fit. And so my car is old enough that we don't have CAN bus systems on them, which is like the data system that's used to connect everything. And so I'm kind of witnessing in real time as the old engines and old ECU systems kind of age out because you can't buy them anymore. The people on the farm are transitioning to, how do we get this new engine system to work on a car that's 30 years old that wasn't designed for it? And kind of the language is trending in a certain way. And you can definitely see there's some people who are on the leading edge, and then there's some people who kind of pop into the forum. My car doesn't work, and I don't know what to do. What do people buy? Right. And so having that kind of centralized information for equipment where, does it work for model year 91 versus 93?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to fit? Does it work on the US model versus the Canadian model? All of that is so opaque. The Toyota knows, but it's locked in a probably a physical piece of paper somewhere in the bottom of a filing cabinet over in California. It's not accessible to the consumer. And so we're kind of having to spend a lot of engineering cycles to kind of redesign something to work in the new era. And so you definitely see it acutely at the end of life of a product.
Yes.
And we're with UNIQ, we're kind of thinking about how do we invest early to kind of keep that knowledge maintained throughout the life cycle of an asset. Because these capital projects you're talking about, these are capital projects that might go 20, 30, 40 years when they're thinking about the life cycle of a factory. Right?
Yeah, that assets generally are more than 30, 40. They have been running for many of them 100 years also.
Yeah.
So, but I think the point here is also about almost like after 3 or 5 years, when the product is a little older, that's when the problems start happening.
Is that first maintenance cycle?
Yeah, the general maintenance, or basically the warranty is over, and then if you have the spares available, it's great. If not, then problem is, how can I find a compatible product to what I already have? It becomes more difficult because then you don't even have information. You don't have information on Googling or in search, or even not in your own system. And that limited information makes it more difficult to find what is more compatible option to that. And everywhere there are some differences in standards also. So it becomes very difficult to find a player or a manufacturer or supplier who can do it, because equipments today, if you look at it, the way it's being manufactured is like somebody's original manufacturer, but on top of it, somebody has modified it, customized it, or did something on top of it more. So the original information is very less, and then we have some information which is there. So it becomes more difficult to find, and you're literally on the mercy of going back to from whoever you have purchased. And in the industry, there's a big challenge regarding what is original and what is that is refurbished. Can that sort of thing work here? Can we find something which is, so even if it is like in use, or if it's not in use, but still if it is available by somebody else, can we really procure it? Can this work? So that sort of information, if somebody has done it, somebody has already figured it out and has shared it on this platform, it becomes easier for the rest of them to find, hey, this has been tried, it works. So it's no more like a word of mouth. It's also information there on the platform, which helps to take a more informed decisions. Or maybe people can go out and contact them, find out more information about it, which helps them to take more accurate analysis, what works and what not. And we have also seen it in many cases when we look at these equipments. Always these are like skid, like multiple components joined together to make one bigger component. Now, if there is information for each of them, then we can go and find out what are compatible for each of them. If not, then it's like the entire skid was manufactured or done by somebody, and we have to figure out a little. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to find that sort of information. But if a skid has a unique ID, a VIN number sort of thing, and every component has that sort of, it becomes very transparent. This is how it is made of. These are the properties. These are the details of each of it. Now, if there is one component getting failed, you can find an alternate to that. If there is a complete skid failure or some problem, it can still be addressed. So industry-wide, there are a lot of equipments which people assume that it's original one, but it is more like repurposed. So it solved that problem as well, because now what happens, okay, if I'm talking about this equipment, we both are sure this is the equipment because this is an ID from this particular platform, and these are the information related to it.
But now, what is this equipment that's 100 years old? Because I'm curious about that.
You're still on that, yeah.
Okay, there are refineries which have been quite old. There are many assets which are pretty old. They have gone through multiple upgrades. A lot of changes have happened. I would say
like a big steam like reformer or something like that could be that old, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of upgrades happened. It changed a lot.
Today, we're going to totally change gears. So when I went to London, they have the original like water treatment plant back there that's like a steam pump engine. This and it's a museum now, but like they still run the equipment where it's got to be a few hundred years old.
Yeah.
Where they're just using it to pump water into like fresh water, I think from their like waste treatment facility, and it's like an old 2-stroke steam system. And like there's nobody who remembers how that thing was built, right? Because it's got to be so old. But a lot of this old big industrial equipment just lasts forever because it's too valuable to remove or take out. And you think about like over in Oil City, like all that refining equipment, like no one wants to turn it off, right?
Yes.
So that's how it ends up lasting so long. Right?
Where do you start with something like that?
Where would you
dig
start
for that info to bring it online?
In that case, I think there is very negligible information available for that sort of old assets. What we are starting mostly is what is available today. What is there.
So it's planning for the next 100 years. Essentially. Yes. Yeah.
And the idea is to put all of this in blockchain so that it's available throughout the lifespan of that asset, and people can consume it as and when needed. And most of these things grow with respect of time. Like many times, what we have been seeing exactly more is about if you have purchased an equipment today, after 2 years, manufacturer would come up with a new version, and they are promoting the latest version. So the older ones is where the problem starts. And if there is some information, because what we are populating or what we are bringing and making it available is a snapshot. What is the greatest and latest we have for that equipment is available today, and it's available on the blockchain. It cannot be deleted. You can overwrite on top of it, but still it has all the information of that.
Yeah.
And that helps after some period of time when the problem starts, or people who are looking for more detailed information. And there are multiple ways these informations are looked at. After 3 or 4 years, when you're trying to decommission, you would like to know what is the dimension of this? What's the weight of it? I have to move it. That struggle will go away. It's easier to find, okay, this is the equipment. I can scan it. I can go and find the more detailed information. And you can populate your sheets or moving goods, receipt sort of thing. And everything becomes more easier. And you have more reliable information. That helps in a way that people who are consuming this type of information on a daily basis, they get the ease of using it for preparing a lot of things. Like even if you're preparing a bill of material, you don't need to populate all the 30 attributes of it. You just populate unique ID and it will populate the rest of it. So in a ease, you have bill of materials, you have got goods moving receipts, you have, and you know, in digital twins or this type of engineering document management system, there are a lot of details which can be populated. Often they are blank, and due to that, there's always a difficulty to find ways of making it available. Now, because it's not available, today a lot of new technology solutions which are coming up based on AI ML, like if suppose companies have got thousands or millions of valves, and nowadays AI solutions are coming up which tells you when this valve will open or when will it close, or what is the rate of failure, when it is possibly going to be worn out, or a potential problem may occur. So if you know how many valves you have in a company, what are the types of valves, what are those equipments and types of it, what is the rating of it, probably those type of smart solutions can be applied. Today, if it is not identified, it's not classified that this is the type of valve, this is the rating, these type of smart solutions getting applied becomes more difficult. So it's like, okay, for the sake of completing it, somebody may have to go and manually do it, but for thousands and millions of it becomes way more difficult.
It's not possible for one person to do it. Yeah.
And it's left incomplete. To some extent, it's done, somebody attempts it, and then they leave it because it's practically, it's very, very difficult to do it.
Yeah. So let's shift the conversation a little bit. So you kicked off some of the company by getting a Shell Game Changer award. How else have you been building the business? Are you guys self-funded? Are you out with a seed round?
So we are till now self-funded, and we are looking getting more into the VC rounds. We have gone through many rounds, but we are also exploring the possibility of crowd funding, listing the token. That's another way we see we can get more funded. At the same time, we are also looking at onboarding more of these manufacturers and bringing in more of the customers who need this type of data. There is a lot of greenfield and brownfield projects going on, and most of the companies require this type of metadata. So in this ecosystem, getting hold of these projects, companies, as well as subject matter experts and manufacturers is something which we are trying to drive a lot. And in terms of getting more funding, we do see a huge potential. We have been in various conversations, but I think the traditional way of going with VCs, we find a difficulty that many of the VCs have a challenge understanding this complexity or this problem happening in this industry. One of the various common questions we hear about from them is, hey, if the companies have been managing it for so long without this type of metadata, why do they need it now?
Yeah.
And they can continue doing it maybe.
What's the forcing function? And I think that's always a question in VC is like, why now? Right?
Yes. And there are a lot of smart solutions, and there are a lot of pressing need from different areas. One of them is supply chain. Without this type of metadata, building that type of digital footprint, like the way we explained for cars and wind and all that, it's not feasible. If I have an asset which I want to track each and everything happening related to that, one of the first primary thing is I need to have the very basic bedrock of it, which is the metadata available in my system. And doing it for all the equipments is way difficult, and every company has to do. Then why everybody should do? Why can't it be done in a? And that was the reason Shell came up with this type of a request in a public domain, that somebody should come up with a solution in it. It's not like one company needs it. Everybody in the domain require it. And if you look at from others' angles, like people who are working on these type of equipments, and they always have this challenge to figure out how can we have more accurate information which we can find and share. And that gets resolved when we have this type of universal industry-wide solution which everybody gets to tap in and utilize it on a daily basis.
So I want to go back. So you mentioned one of the ways to fund this is to do like a coin offering.
Yes.
Are people still doing initial coin offerings? That's kind of my first question, because I have no idea. I don't know much.
It's still happening. It's still active. It's still going on.
What goes into a successful coin offering, I guess?
I think there are a couple of things. One of them is how good that solution is. What is being offered as a token, and what is the value that is being looked into it. Now, many of these things are tied up to virtual assets. So here, in our case, what we see is real equipments, real stuffs which people are using on a daily basis. And we do see a good potential in terms of getting this listed, because this is not one region specific or one industry specific. This is something which is across the globe, and all the industries require it. We have started with oil and gas because we see it's more beneficial to first make it work for one industry, that expanding it to utilities, MRO, even aerospace. Aerospace has a bigger problem which is related to duplicates. And this is a common problem. The challenge is about how to find those duplicates, because every component there is a duplicate running in almost all the aircraft there. And it becomes very difficult to find which one is genuine and which one is duplicate. So unless there is a mechanism where you identify each equipment, and then the manufacturers, identifying duplicates is an industry-wide problem. And we do see a big potential with this blockchain where every equipment has that sort of unique identity, and then you tracking the manufacturers.
And so I'm curious, like if you contemplate a coin offering, what are the barriers to doing that? Do you have to like register it somewhere? Or
yes.
Is that the process now?
So there are two options there: centralized and decentralized options.
Okay.
We are exploring the decentralized one, and I think both are great, but there are pros and cons on both. Decentralized works great for us because when we are initially listing it.
And where do you list it? I'm like very
there are decentralized exchanges.
Okay.
And
it's not Coinbase. Is that?
No, not necessarily. It's, it has changed a lot.
Okay.
And these options are becoming more matured also. There are tokens which are being offered in multiple ways. People can because all of it is transparent. At the end of it, it's more like we put up smart contracts, people buy it. Everything is very transparent. It's not something the way it was done previously. It's more like everybody gets to see it. It's visible. And that helps to expand and keep doing the project that people want to do and launch it. Or even after you have launched, people need help in terms of scaling it. So those type of things through a decentralized option makes it a little more easier to do. And being transparent makes easier for people to rely also. It's more like I know what I'm putting into, where it is going. It's all visible, transparent. So it's not hidden. And that takes away a lot of those speculation or tampering which can happen, because at the end of it, it's also a blockchain. It's going into the block, becoming a hash getting created. Everything is there straightforward. So that brings a lot of ease for people to invest or step in and take a more. There are a couple of flavors more into it. Some cases there are more additional rights that comes with it. It depends how it's getting listed.
So if I understand this correctly, so this turns into some kind of cryptocurrency, your solution?
Yeah. So in this case, we have launched our own tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be launching it through an exchange and making it available in the public domain as well. So what happens in that case is it's a token. It's
Mm-hmm.
a ERC token which is specifically running on this platform, but it is compatible with other. Mainly, it's going to be compatible with Ethereum basically.
Mm-hmm.
We have hosted this on Polygon blockchain, and this becomes a little more compatible with Ethereum's ecosystem. So anybody who has it will be able to basically connect it with their wallets,
Mm-hmm.
take it, trade it, move it from here to other platforms. That sort of flexibility comes along with that, which gives a lot of ease for people to contribute. People at the end of it, they want to see their token value increasing. And if they are able to contribute more into the platform, like they can share knowledge, they can share videos, they can put more images, how they use that equipment, or while using, if they have encountered a problem, how did they solve it? All these things are some or other way a contribution towards this platform. And we have a mechanism that sort of contribution gets awarded. So they earn more tokens by being an active user or contributing with different sort of information. And those tokens get into the wallets. So it's a Web3 environment. Everybody who registers gets a dedicated wallet ID, and which helps them to later on take that in tokens and move it to others, or maybe they can buy other stuffs and products. We are also looking at connecting this with other Web3 environments where they can buy any other retail products if they want to. Like we have seen users in other industry. We all travel, we generate miles, points, we redeem them for other purposes, and that sort of same thing can be leveraged in this environment.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's incentivizing this collective gathering of all this information, and I mean, a lot of ways it's an archive. Is that a way? Is that an interesting way of looking at it, or do you
no?
say?
If you look at it, a lot of people in the industry have spent a lot of time of their life working on these equipments and the plant refineries or chemical plant, and they have learned a lot, and they are carrying a good amount of information and knowledge which they want to share. So this platform gives them an opportunity to share that, and as they share, more people get to view it. It helps them to generate more tokens. They will earn tokens by contributing it. So a lot of information and knowledge which goes away after certain decades because there is change of new workforce coming in, it will benefit the next workforce team. It will help the next generation to learn from it. What were the challenges? How did they overcome this? Industrial space changes are very slow. So any change happening will take a lot of time. So anybody who is attempting to bring a change or trying to do any maintenance, that sort of information helps a lot to figure out what is more, I would not call perfect, but at least regrettable path. It helps to find a way which is more safe way to do it, or what is it that is more a known path, but somebody needs to be more cautious to try that. And this type of information is acquired by working on these type of stuff for a long due course of time, because many times manufacturers also struggle to find information, and they get to know more about from the users who are using it. So it's a mechanism where people have a sense, be able to share information with sense of pride. It'll help others who are looking for that type of skilled resources, because there is a lot of transition happening. People who were working previously in FPSOs or other offshore.
FPSO is what?
FPSO is like floating production storage.
So offshore oil.
Offshore tankers, you can call it, which is used to extract oil and store it, and then it passes on to the other vessels or tankers which approach them. So in those offshore environments, people who are working and have a good amount of knowledge, they are transitioning a lot into this renewable energy. So from this platform, if somebody has commented on any offshore products, it's easy to find that sort of skilled resources who has more knowledge on offshore areas, who could be a potential hire for this type of renewable. So it's a way to find more skilled resources, at the same time more it gives a sense of pride for people to be able to share this type of information to others, industry wide. There is a common struggle to find that sort of very niche information, and people who are like about to retire or moving to some other job at some point of time. For them, it becomes an avenue to share this with others in the industry and be able to generate and earn tokens. More people view it, the more they get tokens, and that helps across industry.
It helps kind of incentivize the goodwill almost.
Yeah.
So we're in our last like 7 minutes. So I want to ask, how have you found the Houston innovation ecosystem and the resources that are there to support you?
Houston, I feel it's a good melting pot. We have a lot of different type of resources, and that is very, very, very helpful. And you get people from across the globe here in the city. And I see that in schools, I see that in offices and everywhere. So a solution like this is a global. It is not something that one single type of mind can cover all of it. We have started it, I think, but it's growing, and we do see a lot of potential when we connect with other developers from gaming industry. They are extremely sharp, and they are doing great work in that, which we like to. It attracts us. We want to leverage that to the best possible
Houston.
way.
You're connecting with the gaming industry here in Houston? Or
Yeah, there are many of them. We do see and meet them in different events, and blockchain events or others, and they are very fast, and that's what we also need. More agile approach, but at the same time, quick developments, quick wins. And at the same time, I think this is a combination of a lot of functional data, blockchain technology, all of it together. We also want to leverage AI to better ways to ease and bring a lot of ease for people to learn this, because this is a Web3. It's a new environment. A learning curve in this type of thing takes a little while. There are people who are quick learners, so we do see that a good option, and that's why Houston becomes a great place to not just incubate but to expand it. Because energy industry is going through a transition. Even if we look at the current assets or the way hydrocarbon industry is working, and then we have this renewables, and then potentially hydrogen, or even the setup for carbon capture and storage, and all of these have almost same type of equipments being used. So even if the transition happens tomorrow, the very basic question is, what is the environmental rating for each of these equipments? How can we optimize it? Instead of finding or sourcing it globally from some other part of the globe, can we really find a supplier who can fulfill our needs here locally? All these questions needs answers. And a solution like UNIQ has that sort of metadata, which helps to take a little more well-informed decisions. If a buyer is looking for information and you see that few of the manufacturers have put more detail and some have not, obviously the inclination will be towards the information which is more detailed.
More complete.
Yeah. And that is where the push is also. Industry is also pushing for more information. How can we get that thing? And we are trying to make that available to all. And even if the transition is towards a more renewable, and as we look towards more hydrogen, the detailed information for each of those equipments is still going to be a struggle. So making ease is to bring and fixing this bedrock problem, that let's have a system which has all the metadata of all the industrial equipments, and then more additional detailed assets can be built where accurate information is available to all. If equipment has to be sourced from somewhere, let it happen. That's perfectly fine. But a person who is buying or a supply chain team has more clear information. They get to know more manufacturers, suppliers in this local area who are potential, could help them in being able to fulfill the requirements. Because because COVID taught this a good lesson. Like a lot of suppliers were not able to fulfill that requirements, and there was a gap in supply chain. If you have somebody locally who can do it, people want to explore it. The question is, how do we find that? This is a portal where these type of manufacturers or suppliers register themselves and they get to connect with those type of potential buyers.
Have you tracked down the info?
Yeah. So I appreciate the broad vision of like how we can make the data accessible, and it's a new way to think about, it's not going through Google, right? It's using the blockchain to access really the core information people need. As we sign off here, how do people find UNIQ? How do they find ENP technologies?
So UNIQ is available on currently on a website. It's UNIIEQ.com, which stands for Universal Industrial Equipment Code. And it's a blockchain environment. We would highly encourage everyone to just log in, register as a user. And if you're a manufacturer, then register as a manufacturer as well. It by default gives adequate tokens to add a good amount of industrial equipments, maybe hundreds of them in one go can be done. That helps to get to know more about it. All the white papers are there on our website itself. At very bottom of it, it doesn't even ask for emails. You can just download. The token fees are way, way low. There is no entry barrier. It's completely free to register and log in. And the token consumption is like something like 0.02 for one equipment.
Okay.
So there is indeed no barrier. We are highly encouraging industry to use it, adopt it, come along with the journey. We are bringing a change. There's a good amount of ease that will come along with this because it brings a lot of transparency and visibility to everyone. And at the same time, it makes convenient for industry to find more leads and others to find more such suppliers. I won't call it purely a marketplace now, but it's an ecosystem.
And how do people find you specifically?
I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and I'm available on Pranav at enptechnologies.com. We are connecting with many manufacturers and we would be very happy to hear more about it. We are always available through connecting us through emails or come meet us at Energy Nexus also. We are there weekly and we would like to be happy to connect with such manufacturers or suppliers as well as anyone in the industry who would like to join this ecosystem as a subject matter experts. We highly encourage you all, everyone to step in and let's make this an ecosystem that helps the energy industry and all other industry.
Good. All right. Thank you.